Welcome to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast, presented by Vox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin.
Stephon Gilmore go to the Patriots. Now they let Mike Gillislee go to the Patriots. Are they now just the farm club within their own division?
Greg.
He's one of these faux leading women. It's like, that's not Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Aniston. It's some girl that I would see at the Circle K. That's kind of Alshon Jeffrey.
And Ryan.
There is absolutely no reason why O.J. Howard should be drafted before Cameron Brate. All right, so welcome everyone again to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrud. With me tonight is my brother Justin. Go ahead and say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Alrighty. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to cover tonight.
Unless your name is Spencer Ware.
Yes, or Cameron Meredith.
Or those who drafted them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get into some draft stuff tonight too. We're going to cover some news and notes, some guys that we think should be talked about. Let me see, make sure, where in the world did that story go? There's where we are. Okay. Pulling up some news and notes for us to go over, and then tonight we'll also start covering, with it being draft week, we are officially now starting tonight going to 4 episodes a week. So we will be doing one tonight, tomorrow, hopefully Tuesday and Wednesday also. And then and once we get into the season, we'll kind of see how it goes. But tonight, since it is draft week, we want to make sure we got as much coverage as possible for you guys to be ready to draft your leagues. I've already gone through, well, officially now 2 drafts, because I did the one with the Scott Fish Bowl about a month ago, which there's that one kind of needed to be done early, but did one of my league drafts tonight, and I absolutely killed the draft. And I'll mention a couple things in that and talk about that a little bit. Justin, I saw his team on one of his drafts. He had a really nice night as well. So
Yeah, it was a Instagram up and coming experts league is what they called it. And if it's up and coming, these guys need help.
Alrighty. All right. So we are live on Twitter. We are live on Facebook. Justin, are you live on Instagram?
I am live on Instagram.
All right. So awesome. Well, they won't. I guess they won't. They're not going to be able to hear me on Instagram, are they, Justin?
No, they won't. It's just kind of a half feed. We'll figure it out for the next episode.
All right. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead. Oh, there's a couple things we got to talk about. One, we have a SleeperBot channel. Please go check us out. You may not be able to find us in the trending section because we're
not trending yet.
We're not trending yet, but we need your help. So if you could go when you open up SleeperBot, if you open up SleeperBot on the computer, you can actually hit the little search tab and search for Skull King Fantasy, the best fantasy site you've never heard of. That's us. You can also, I believe, on the actual app, when you go to the sidebar and look for channels, there's a search bar where you can search for, again, Skull King Fantasy. We have a channel there that we try to post in at least a couple times. So far, we're just trying to post in there a couple times a week. And so we've got that.
Feel free to post in questions for the show, questions you'd like us to cover on the show as well in that avenue.
Absolutely. On top of that, also, we would love to. We haven't really talked about this in a long time, but we have merch, people. If you go to our website, skullkingfootball.com/merch, MERCH, or go to the merch tab on the homepage, we have hoodies, T-shirts. We have ladies tank tops. We have youth and toddler shirts for the mommies and daddies that love bragging about using their kids to brag about how good their fantasy football skills are. And then we also have cell phone cases, and as soon as I get a new cell phone, I'm getting one of those cell phone cases. So yeah, I mean, we think that they're pretty nice. One of these, I think eventually, Twitter. If for all those that are actually on Twitter right now, I don't know how many of you there actually are. And for those on Facebook, we would love your input on this. Would you guys want Skull King sweatshirts or hoodies or t-shirts in the colors of your favorite NFL team? Like if we could make that happen so that maybe our logo is still in white, but like the highlighting and the actual shirt color were in your team's shirt colors or in your team's colors. Is that something you'd be interested in? If it is, please respond to us on Facebook underneath this live feed, or respond to us on Twitter as well underneath our live feed. We would love to hear back from you. That's something that we've kind of had an idea of doing, and we would love to know if that's something that you guys would be interested in. Would you be more likely to buy a shirt if it was in your team's colors? If that's the case, well, we'll do everything we can to make that happen. One more thing that we've got going on is we want to one more time plug our contest, because the entries will end Thursday when the first game when the last game Thursday starts. And our contest to be entered to win a Jay Ajayi signed jersey or a Martavis Bryant signed jersey or a Skull King t-shirt. Go to skullkingfootball.com. You can download our draft guide, which is free. If you go onto the main homepage, there's a link to download it. You can actually, just under our trending stories, there's a get your 2017 draft guide. Click on that picture of our draft guide, and you'll get an email confirmation where you can download it from there. Also, to also be entered, if you could please leave a rating/review on iTunes and maybe screenshot that to send to us. We would appreciate that too. That'll give you another entry. And what was the other way that they could enter? Oh, well, we got rid of the other way that they could enter.
What was the other one?
Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
So
we put that project on hold.
We're putting the Patreon project on hold. Oh, apparently I can't be heard. Thanks. My wife made sure to let me know that.
On Twitter or on Facebook?
Facebook, and I don't know why. Give me just a second. All right. Hey, there we go. Maybe because there. Can you hear me now, Emily? My wife is actually that's the dinging. I should be able to be heard now because I don't know what happened, but I think on our Facebook, we use a separate program for doing Facebook and a separate program for doing our regular podcast that we record to post to YouTube and to iTunes and all that. And then we use my phone separately to do to Twitter. So, I mean, we've got like 3 different programs all running at the same time, and sometimes we forget to turn some things on and reset some settings. So I believe I can be heard now. I'm not going to test it because I don't want feedback. So hopefully that works. All right. So now, so please make sure to get on to get on to iTunes to give us a review, or download our draft guide to be entered for the contest. So, all right, let's get going with our info. Sleepabot. All right, we're going to start off here. Jay Cutler prefers big athletic receivers with a large catch radius. No duh. So that means Devontae Parker is the man to own in Miami as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we were talking off air, and I was coming to the conclusion after watching the game and the monstrosity of a catch that Devontae Parker made over the defender. I had the growing idea and thought that with Jay Cutler now kind of wiping the slate clean, and that now the history of Jarvis Landry being a 93 catch receiver, he's got a new quarterback. Everything gets wiped clean, and it looks like he really likes Devontae Parker. So I believe Devontae Parker will outscore Jarvis Landry this year. Personally.
I actually agree with you. I actually posted that in Sleeperbot. in our Sleeper Bot channel. That was one of my big hot takes for the year, is that Jarvis Landry will be outscored by Devontae Parker this year. And to go along with what we already know, I mean, at one point, I want to say it was last week's show, we stated that Jay Cutler had described Devontae Parker as a faster Alshon Jeffrey. And so right there, that's a guy that he's going to love to throw to. And so I really think that Devontae Parker's stock is going up right now. So we'll maybe get into a little bit later about where he's actually going, and whether or not it's a good spot or a bad spot for you to take him. So, all right. And to go again, we're going along with that Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker thing. Rumor has been going out that the Miami Dolphins are seriously taking trade offers for Jarvis Landry. So that's another thing to think about there. So, all right, moving on. Speaking Thursday, LaShawn McCoy said that he's been assured by the Bills he's not on the trading block. I don't think they could afford to trade much else unless they absolutely just wanted to compete with the Jets in their own division for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, moving on, the Indianapolis Star believes Colts coach Chuck Pagano left the door open for Stephen Morris to get reps with the first team offense in Saturday's regular season dress rehearsal. I believe that's their backup quarterback. It is not looking good on this whole Andrew Luck thing. Avoid Andrew Luck. Do not draft Andrew Luck unless you draft like Tom Brady also. And and Luck fell to you to be able to use as a guy to just stash on your bench to try to trade later, which as an organization we strongly would tell you to not do that. I mean, that's not a philosophy that we live by. You draft for guys that you want, that you know are going to be valuable for your team. And if someone happens to want to trade for one of your players, then you take that with a grain of salt and be like, okay, is this going to fit for me? Is it not? If not, no. So leave Andrew Luck alone. Don't draft him. Just wait. Let someone else take that headache.
He's going to eat a roster spot because you're not going to cut him, because you're going to fear that the second you do, he's going to pull a Latavius Murray on you and go off the next week and come back and be healthy. So you're going to be aggravated when he comes back. He won't be healthy, but you in the back of your head are going to continue to believe that he is the Andrew Luck of 2 or 3 years ago when he was the most productive fantasy player.
Yeah.
That's why you avoid that headache to begin with, and you're not doing the first half of your season self-doubting and holding up a roster spot when you can do a little bit more mixing and matching.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Rams coach Sean McVay said Cooper Kupp has a minor groin injury, therefore he did not play in this last game for the Rams against the Chargers. Cooper Kupp has been playing very, very well in that offense. It looks like him and Goff have developed some chemistry, and Kupp could be a very productive wide receiver 3.
Could he be this year's PPR Beasley?
Possibly, just because the Rams are bad enough still that they're going to be in some need to pass situations. And so it'll be interesting to see how Goff handles that. Cooper Kupp, he's not a burner. He ran a 4.55 40. But he is a precise route runner.
Yes.
And
he's
so
not, what he lacks for in speed, he will make up for in the precision of his routes.
In the precision of his routes, his size and his catch radius are very, very good. So
yeah, it's good to see Jared Goff is doing better. But Sean Manning's right behind him, performing very, very well.
Yes. Yeah.
Goff. You know what they say about having 2 quarterbacks? You don't have one.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got 2 quarterbacks on your team, you don't have one at all. So, all right. Thomas Rawls and CJ Procise missed this last Friday's preseason game. And in their absence, Chris Carson went 8 attempts for 46 yards and 2 receptions for 44 yards. This is causing a major running back controversy and dilemma in Seattle. I mean, Chris Carson's a truck, 6 foot 218, and it's raw muscle. I mean, I don't know if you've actually seen some of the pictures of him. The guy looks like he's just absolutely shredded. Hopefully, he doesn't look like, shredded meat or something to Lacey, because then Lacey will eat him up. And
there's our one Eddie Lacy food joke for tonight.
There's our Eddie Lacy food joke for tonight. So with Chris Carson, you've got Lacey in front of him, who has dealt with some weight issues and injury issues the last couple of years. You've got Thomas Rawls, who's been dealing with injury issues and has not been able to stay healthy at all.
No.
And then you've got CJ Procise, who is almost looking like he's turning into the next Christine Michael.
Yes.
And
Alex Collins, also on the roster, who had some production last year,
who will most likely get cut.
Quote unquote ahead of him on the depth chart, will more likely get cut.
Yes. So you have Carson, who I stashed him in my draft today. I took him with the last pick of the draft.
What I would say is that if you're doing a standard ESPN or Yahoo league where you only have 6 bench spots, I would do it only with your last pick.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I did it with my last pick, and so I've got a couple of backups that are possible, that could possibly do something. I did not pick a kicker. I picked a defense just because I wanted to make sure I got the right defense for streaming for a couple weeks. But I did not pick a kicker yet, and will not take one until right before the season starts, so that I can have a couple guys to see what their role is going to be going into the season.
Robert Aguayo it is.
That's if he even makes the Bears squad at this point. So yeah, I like Chris Carson. I think that I may see what I can do to hold on to him for a little bit and see if he makes some waves and actually gets into the starting roster, because he's been getting time with the ones. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So he actually split time with Eddie Lacy in the ones in this last game. So. Texan wide receiver Jalen Strong is suspended for the first game of 2017 for violating the NFL policy and program for substances of abuse. Jalen Strong isn't a
substances of
that's
abuse.
I'm not even joking. I'm sure that's the that's actually what it says on here. I don't know if that's actually whatever.
Substances of abuse. So,
I know it doesn't matter.
Jalen's like abuse, but
Jalen Strong isn't really a fantasy target anyway. So
yeah, but he was making in the absence of
is it Fuller?
Of Will Fuller, he was doing a lot to regain the confidence of the coaching staff and why he was a round 3 pick at last year's draft, and why he didn't really play much last year because there's a serious drop issue in training camp at the beginning of last season. So we didn't really see any time. And then now he was getting a lot of beneficial targets. So it is what it is. All
right. Let's move on. I still don't think he's fantasy relevant, really, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But we'll move on from there. The next story here that we've got is, well, here we go back to Andrew Luck. ESPN Colts reporter Mike Wells says the odds are against Andrew Luck playing in Week 1 against the Rams. For me, odds are against him playing in the first 3 or 4 games. We don't even know how much he's even been throwing. They're keeping this extremely hush-hush. That does not bode well, in my opinion. No news is bad news in this case. So, Torrey Smith caught his lone target for a 50-yard touchdown in the Eagles' 3rd preseason game. That was his only. I didn't realize that was his only target. That's really all he's going to be. He's going to be a wide receiver 4 boom or bust type of guy. I think he's one of those guys that you maybe kind of take a flyer on DFS because he's going to be cheap. on a possible game against like a team like San Francisco is going to give up a lot of yards over the top. Other than that, I'm not, I'm staying away from Torrey Smith. Like we talked about in our last episode, we're all staying away from Alshon Jeffrey too.
Yeah.
So.
There are a lot of people believing in Wentz this year, and the only person that I would really look to draft as a receiver from Wentz would be the tight end in Ertz.
Zach Ertz. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
And the reason the reason for me that Zach Ertz stock is going up is because Jordan Matthews isn't there. They ran the same stinking routes right over the middle.
Yep.
Jordan Matthews was a wide receiver body running tight end routes. So
yes,
out of the slot. So now that he's gone, Zach Ertz should really have. I think Zach Ertz. This is actually a year where I'd be willing to draft him. I've never wanted to draft him before. So
yeah.
All right. LeGarrette Blount and Wendell Smallwood shared first-team running back reps in the Eagles' third preseason game. I didn't actually see how Smallwood played in that game. I know that they've had some issues with how Blount has been in practices. But
you mean slow?
Yeah, well, he's been slow. Rumor has that he's been overweight as well. Really, I mean, I'm staying away from LeGarrette Blount. I think Wendell Smallwood could actually have a semi-decent year this year.
Yeah, and now I wouldn't sleep on Pumphrey. Great back out of San Diego State.
San Diego State, yep.
Yeah, isn't he the all-time leading rusher in college football now?
Yes, but part of the reason is because they only a few years ago started adding in your bowl game yards into your season yards.
Right.
And so if you actually took in bowl game yards, I believe Ron Dane still hasn't beat.
Okay. Well, to me, Pumphrey's still kind of an outlier. Smallwood didn't do much when he had the starting role last year. A lot of people thought he was a great pickup late in the season. I'm still not a believer in Blount. He did have a 16-yard run, but the other 3 carries netted a yard apiece.
Yeah.
So you can get some splash out of Blount, but he will not be who he was at New England. He has never been anything remotely close to what he was at New England with any other team.
Correct. So, and just as far as Smallwood goes in that last game, he had 4 carries for 28 yards. So
yeah, Smallwood did much better.
Was running the ball pretty well there. So, all right, moving on. Jay Ajayi in his last game, 9 rushes for 53 yards. So he's averaging over 5 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns.
One thing I want to ask here really quick, Ryan, is
sir.
How concerned are you with the concussion early and the injury history he has had so far outside of last year?
Jay Ajayi still gives me pause. For the most part, last year he stayed healthy. His only problem was last year the first couple games he was behind Arian Foster. The first game he didn't even travel to Seattle because he was basically complaining about the fact that he wasn't the starter. And so they, Adam Gase said, shut the F up, stay at home. So basically is what happened. So
well, and then later Jay Ajayi said, told you.
Yeah, had half of his yards in 3 games.
Yep.
So
the other half of the season he didn't do squat.
He had some kind of, he was back and forth a lot, but I think with how I think he'll be a running back one this year. I do think that. So Christian McCaffrey is still playing well. I still like Christian McCaffrey over Jonathan Stewart. Stewart is more of a standard type back. Christian McCaffrey is going to get a lot of his work, in the passing game. However, he has run the ball really well also. When he can get blocks, we'll see how it goes when Cam Newton's actually playing with them regularly. So, which he has not done yet. So, let's see. Thomas Rawls. Okay, back to Thomas Rawls. Rawls was actually listed atop the Seahawks' latest running back depth chart. That was 2 days ago. Okay, so now we get in to the devastating news from a couple days ago. Julian Edelman has had a complete tear of his ACL, and is out for the season. And then right after that, Spencer Ware went down with a torn PCL and most likely will need season-ending surgery to repair it. So let's start with the Edelman news. Or maybe we should cover that later. Let's keep going through the news. We'll cover how Julian Edelman affects things. Okay, everyone should know what we're going to say about the whole Spencer Ware thing.
Yes.
We've told you to draft Kareem Hunt.
This podcast,
if you've had drafts already,
2 episodes, even just 2 episodes. We talk about this every day.
Doesn't matter which episodes, just 2 episodes, and you'd be able to hear us talk about it.
There's an Eddie Lacy food reference. There's a Steve Sarkisian horrible offensive coordinator reference, and there's a Kareem Hunt reference.
And there's a Cameron Brate should be drafted over O.J. Howard reference as well. So,
who I was able to get in the 14th round.
Same here. So, all right. So we'll talk about kind of the effects of Spencer Ware and Julian Edelman. Going into that, Chris Hogan caught all 4 of his targets for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns after Julian Edelman went down. Interesting.
Which we'll allude to later.
We talked about Carson. Jaguars coach Doug Marrone named Blake Bortles the starting quarterback for the regular season opener against the Texans after having Chad Henne start for the dress rehearsal game in week 3. Interesting. So with Blake Bortles as the quarterback, I still believe that gives Allen Robinson and Marquise Lee the most value. Again, they have a very young defense. I think their defense is going to be up and down, and because of that, they're still going to need to pass the crap out of the ball. And if you have, I'm okay to take Blake Bortles late in some leagues. Only though, make sure you get this, only take Blake Bortles in leagues where you will not be penalized for turnovers. In those types of leagues, he'll finish in the top 10 to top 12. I have him as a super flex in the Scott Fish Bowl because there is no negative points for interceptions or fumbles. So, and that's the only reason that I took him there. He's actually
should make Mark Ingram very popular too.
I mean, Blake Bortles in that format, Blake Bortles is actually projected for more points than Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
So, here's a kind of a feel-good story. Speaking with Fox Sports' Jay Glazer, the Vikings coach Mike Zimmer said that there is a possibility Teddy Bridgewater could return this season. For those of you who don't remember exactly what happened to his knee, it'll make you vomit. I mean, Justin's already got a look on his face. Don't look
it up.
Don't look up. Don't look up what happens in this injury because you'll want to throw up. But
when I say don't go look at it, that doesn't mean secretly go look at it. That means really don't know.
If you're squeamish at all, yeah, definitely don't look up. But in order just to kind of he tore his ACL, MCL, and PCL, and the only thing kind of holding his knee together was his patellar tendon, and then he dislocated his knee on top of that. So in all 3 of those tendons, the outsides and the one up the middle, all 3 of those tore. It was just the patellar tendon on the outside, and then it got stretched, and his knee went like this. Instead of being like this, it went like this. And so, yeah, it's really ugly. The fact that he's actually could possibly come back this year is beyond phenomenal.
I think he should sit it out again. The reason why I understand him wanting to come back because this is the last year of his contract. He wants to be able to show something. But really, Bradford took him to the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So why would Mike Zimmer, unless they're in trouble and Stafford, who knows, does something to his shoulder, which he is known to do. I don't see them really, even if he gets healthy, for them to see him on the field.
Okay. Chiefs coach Andy Reid said that Kareem Hunt will be the, quote, feature back for the Chiefs in Spencer Ware's absence.
Told you.
We told you. We knew that was going to happen.
Not like this, but
not like this. But we figured it was going to. We figured that Kareem Hunt was going to be the feature back. Thanks, Justin.
Sorry.
All right. Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor has been diagnosed with a concussion. The Bills now only have one healthy quarterback, because was it TJ Yates got knocked out later in that game, got knocked out with a concussion. Their only healthy quarterback now is Nathan Peterman.
Who?
Nathan Peterman out of Pitt.
Yeah.
I think it was Pitt.
I know, but
yeah.
There's a reason why I said that.
He's a solid quarterback, but he's still young. He's been in an NFL system from Pitt. He didn't play in a spread system. So I think that he could do okay. That spells more plus for Zay Jones, because Tyrod Taylor has problems throwing those short routes to guys like Zay Jones and over the middle. And it spells very good things for Shady, because they have no choice but to run the offense through Shady McCoy.
Which is why Shady is skyrocketing up the
depth charts.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see Shady go 3 in some drafts coming up.
Very possible.
To kind of take that Ezekiel Elliott void.
Even in PPR.
Even in PPR, because who knows? He could be the number 1 receiver for Buffalo too.
That very well could be. Demaryius Thomas left the Browns' 3rd preseason game with a groin injury. As far as Demaryius Thomas goes, he is a guy that, again, I give credit to the Eat Sleep Fantasy guys for showing this stat earlier this year. But Demaryius Thomas has not met his draft position in like 3 or 4 years since his first year with Manning. And so he's still being drafted, I want to say, as like the wide receiver 15 in PPR. Let's see. Nope, he's dropped down to wide receiver 16. So on mid to late 3rd round in 12-team leagues. So
everyone's still remembering that 1 year.
Yeah. So I'd be fine to just leave him alone.
It's the same thing everyone's doing with DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep. Let's see. Jason Witten is still somehow doing what the guy has freaking needs a walker to even get out onto the field, and he catches 6 of 6 targets for 74 yards and a TD. Let's see, moving on. Hugh Jackson has officially named DeShone Kizer as the starter for the Browns. A very Browns thing to do.
To start a rookie?
Yeah. Tyrell Williams sat out Saturday's 3rd preseason game with a groin injury, is day to day. I'm fine for them to just hold him out and just keep him healthy. As long as he stays healthy, draft Tyrell Williams. Please, people, draft Tyrell Williams. I managed to get him in like the 7th round of my draft today. Draft Tyrell Williams. He is a season away from hitting 1,000 yards on 69 catches and 8 TDs. I want to say Andy Behrens of Yahoo on his bold predictions, his fearless forecast has him for 68 TDs, 960 yards.
68 TDs. No.
Or sorry, 68 catches. Sorry, 68 catches.
Number 1 pick.
7 TDs and about 960 yards or so. I have Tyrell Williams for a little over 1,000 yards and 8 TDs again.
Correction. Tyrell Williams will not catch more touchdowns than Tom Brady has thrown in a single season.
All right, moving on. Broncos coach Vance Joseph said after Saturday night's preseason game that Jamal Charles has made the 53-man roster. That's fine. His knees won't last past game 3. So
Well, there's also a report, which we'll get to in a second, and I'll just cover it now, that Jamal Charles was taken into the medical tent on the last run he made, a really hard cut that looked awkward. He didn't come back out. That's not a good sign.
yes, but but again, after that game, they still said that he's made the 53-man roster.
Okay, we'll wait for preseason game 4.
Let's see. Okay, we're going to get into this a little bit more in depth when we talk about Edelman. But Ben Volen of the Boston Globe expects James White, Deion Lewis, and Dwayne Allen all to see an uptick in targets with Julian Edelman out for the season. We'll get into that a little more closely a little bit later. Cameron, then we get into today's bad news. Cameron Meredith is lost for the season with an ACL injury. I mean, how many freaking ACLs are going to go this year?
It's unfortunate, and obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to each and every single one of these athletes that goes down with a season-ending injury like this, because it affects their livelihood, their just physical health in general. But to me, this one was one of a up-and-coming rising star for Chicago who was going to be heavily relied upon in the passing game. Whoever the starting quarterback ends up being, even if Mitch Trubisky wins it out, they were going to rely heavily on Cameron Meredith. He was a very good top 20 receiver the second half of the season last year.
Yep.
But because he didn't start the regular season, a lot of people forget about him, which is why he was being drafted in round 8, 9, or 10.
Correct.
I was fortunate enough to get him in one of my leagues. Now that he's out, got to look for some other options. But to me, this is a little bit more devastating than the Spencer Ware injury, because I don't know if the Bears really have a replacement for Cameron Meredith.
Kevin
on their
White
roster. Kevin White has the same injury issues. I mean, when an offense is looking to rely on Kendall Wright now to potentially be your number 1 receiver.
Titans did it a few years ago. Kendall Wright actually, believe it or not, Kendall Wright actually has a 1,000-yard season.
Yes, I know. So that's why I'm saying,
with only 2 touchdowns.
If I had to pick his replacement, I would go with Kendall Wright. But that's not saying a lot.
Okay. So with Cameron Meredith out, and the wide receiver court they have in Kendall Wright, Kevin White, and Victor Cruz, are you hesitant now to draft Jordan Howard?
Heck no. And here's why. He'll get more involved in the passing game. They will probably stack the box a little bit more, but Chicago has a better offensive line than Howard's counterpart in LA with Gurley. I think they're similar situations where they have to rely a lot more on the run, but Chicago has a much better offensive line than the Rams do. And so even if they stack the box, a lot of times last year, he was facing a stacked box, was still producing as a running back. This is in no way hamper my thoughts of Jordan Howard. He's actually slipping in a few drafts. I almost got him as the second pick I was the 6th spot and almost got him with my second pick. So he was slipping a little. But to me, my value of him even goes higher now with Meredith out.
Alrighty. All right. Let's move on. We got a couple more things here. Interesting. Coach Dirk Cotter indicated that 5th-round running back Jeremy McNichols is a long shot for the Bucs' final 53. Someone's going to pick him up and get a gem in him. I believe that. Anything else? It's a bunch of stats on everything. So that's pretty much it. So real quick before we get into kind of our ADP stuff and the guys we want to talk about here, real quick, we want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Vox DFS Firelines. You can see their emblem here on our backgrounds. Yeah, there we go. Justin pointing, trying to look backwards and point at it. There you go, Vanna.
Or here.
Vox DFS Firelines, they are our top sponsor. They are a consulting and DFS line provider. They have an absolutely phenomenal staff who does a very good job of picking winners on a consistent basis, not only for NFL, but for pretty much any sport you want to play. So make sure to go over to voksdfs.com to check them out, and make sure to let Brad Holda, former writer for us, know that the Skull King guy sent you over there. All right, so let's get into the big news and how are we going to deal with all these injuries that have happened. So I'm going to start with, when should you draft Kareem Hunt? Now that we know that he is going to be the starter, that Spencer Ware is most likely out for the season, when should you draft Kareem Hunt? I mean, I'm seeing people that 3 days ago were able to draft Kareem Hunt in like the 13th round of drafts.
My draft Thursday night had him going in round 9.
Okay. 10 or 12 man?
12 man.
Okay. In my 12-man draft today, I had the second overall pick. So 12-man snake draft, I managed to pluck him in the 5th round, second pick of the 5th round. And there was a bunch of guys that said, that's too early for Kareem Hunt. And everyone's like, I would have gotten him if he didn't take him this round. So Kareem Hunt in a 12-man league, because the news was still fresh today, I think I got lucky to be able to get Kareem Hunt in the 5th round of a 12-team draft. His stock is rising, and it's rising fast. I still think that he is this year's Jordan Howard. Kareem Hunt will run for over 1,200 yards this year, is my prediction.
Yep.
I think he'll have over 1,500 all-purpose yards.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So because of that, I am willing to draft in a 12-team league. I'm willing to draft Kareem Hunt at the end of the 2nd, beginning of the 3rd, because I am positive that that's the production I'm going to get out of that player.
Well, the other piece is this: what differentiates him and, say, a Christian McCaffrey, who's also rising, is that Kareem Hunt does not have a Jonathan Robinson sitting behind him. He has Charkandrick West.
You mean Jonathan Stewart?
Jonathan Stewart. Sorry, he doesn't have a Jonathan Stewart sitting behind him. A veteran who's proven, who just needs some relief. Charkandrick West did have one good game. Did not have the greatest game this last game against Seattle in filling, and he was definitely in the second half of that game, and Kareem Hunt is clearly the starter. So unless, barring injury, I would take Kareem Hunt before Christian McCaffrey. And for those who listened to the last episode, half the people on that podcast, in Ian and Greg, both love Christian McCaffrey as their 2 must-haves on their own teams. So I'm willing to take Kareem Hunt. I was fortunate enough to get him once again in today's draft in the 6th pick of the 4th round. And there were people taking, oddly enough, people like Carlos Hyde and Danny Woodhead ahead of him, with, once again, Danny Woodhead still has his hamstring issues, and I don't see the production coming from Carlos Hyde currently.
No. If you'll remember right, my running back that I was targeting in every single draft, the running back I picked was Kareem Hunt.
Yes.
Because of the value that he get him. Now I have to take him in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
I've got a 10-team league coming up on Thursday that I'm afraid I may have to take him in the 2nd, depending on how the draft is going and depending on where I'm at. I could probably get away with getting him in the 3rd, depending on how it goes.
In a 10-team, you should still be able to get him in the 3rd, depending. Should. Yeah.
There's some wild cards in my work league that will are just. But here's guys I'm willing to take Kareem Hunt over: Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Isaiah Crowell, and Lamar Miller.
You're willing to take Kareem Hunt over Isaiah Crowell?
I am willing to take Kareem Hunt over Isaiah Crowell.
Okay.
I did earlier today.
I took Isaiah Crowell just before Kareem Hunt.
Okay.
So
call me crazy. Fine. I'm willing to do that. All right. So let's that's where I'm willing to take Kareem Hunt. Effects of Julian Edelman. We talked about, we mentioned in there that Chris Hogan had a great game. Chris Hogan, before he came over to the Patriots, was a slot type of guy for the Bills. But when they brought him in, most of the routes that he was running were the over-the-top outside routes. Kind of a deep threat because he does have a little bit of speed. So now because of Edelman being gone, I think I kind of agree the guys that have the most value uptick because of this are going to be James White, Deion Lewis, if Deion Lewis can even stay healthy, which is a big if at this point. I was originally not liking where Brandon Cooks was going. If we go to, again, fantasy football calculator, in 12-team PPR leagues, Brandon Cooks right now is going as the 11th wide receiver at the 9th pick in the second round. I am willing to take him there because I think he gets an uptick with Julian Edelman gone.
Yeah, for those who listened to the last episode, just to call it back, I had Brandon Cooks as my not on your life on my roster, and most of that had to do with where he was being drafted. Right now, he's jumped 3 spots over the last couple of days since the injury to Julian Edelman, and one of the major points that I made was that Julian Edelman is still there. With all of the passes that Brady makes to running backs out of the backfield, with Gronk healthy, those are going to be the number 1 and the number 2 options. And then you have the wide receiver targets split up between Edelman, Amendola, both who have chemistry with Tom Brady. And then you had Brandon Cooks there.
And Hogan.
And then Hogan-ish. But Brandon Cooks was going to be the number 1. A lot of people liked him and saw that he had the best talent of any receiver since Randy Moss. But the issue was that Edelman was still there. Now, when Brady wanted to go to a receiver that he really trusted, he always went to Edelman. But now he's got to go to somebody else. It's not going to be Amendola. I don't see Hogan.
Hogan could get a little bit more because he can run the slot.
He'll get a little bit more, but he's not going to be Edelman.
No.
So now I'm not saying that I will draft Brandon Cooks where he's currently being drafted, but I'm not opposed to somebody doing that now because Edelman's gone.
Yep.
So Brandon Cooks is no longer my don't touch. He's my understand what you're doing. The upside is there because Tom Brady's his quarterback, but the targets are not going to be there like they have been in the past.
Yep. All right, so there's kind of our thoughts on Edelman. All right, who fills in for Cam Meredith? We kind of talked about this a little bit already. I really think that the top, it can be Kevin White, but Kevin White has to stay healthy. I can see Wright having a decent role because he runs mainly from the slot. And I could see that being a good, perhaps it's Adam Shaheen that benefits because he'll get a lot more playing time as one of their best receivers, even as a rookie tight end. But really, let's be honest, they don't have a whole lot of options now for catching the ball. So I'll be honest, I really don't like the situation there now. And I'll still take Jordan Howard if given the chance. But that's definitely not a situation I really like, to be completely honest. So
yeah, and as much as I was going to stay away from both quarterbacks, now no.
Yeah, it's not even a shot. So
now who looks like the genius who got out of Chicago? Jake
Cutler. All right. Kaiser being the quarterback 1, who do you think that this helps out the most?
His name's Kenny Britt. because you don't have Osweiler, who can only hit his tight ends, throwing the ball. You've got a guy in Kaiser who's going to be a little bit erratic,
Yes.
but he will buy some time in the pocket with his legs. He will make some running plays, and he's got a cannon of an arm to launch it downfield. And Kenny Britt is a big body who's going to go and get it. So to me, Kenny Britt is probably jumping up and down internally, saying yes, 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 because he's got someone who's going to launch the ball, which he has not had for a while. And so, with that being said, I'm expecting bigger things for Kenny Britt, and I was expecting there to be a little bit of a bump in Kenny Britt over the last couple of days with that announcement. I think there will be more of a bump over the next couple of days. But I'm expecting some big things because when you look at it, Terrell Pryor last year, with the gobbledygook that was the Cleveland quarterback situation, still almost got 1,000 yards receiving. Correct? I'll have to double check.
Wait,
Terrell Pryor.
just over. I think it was 1,007 yards.
So he got 1,000 yards. He didn't play every time. Kenny Britt almost got 1,000 yards playing for the Rams with that gobbledygook. So if now, and neither of those quarterbacks could have really launched the ball.
No.
So now with DeShone Kizer, his ability to launch, you'll see more deep throwing, passing plays to Kenny Britt, which will open it up. Yes, Corey Coleman's there. Yes, they've got some tight end stuff they've got to figure out. But it is the Cleveland offense. This most beneficially helps Kenny Britt.
All right. I think the to kind of counteract that, I think one of the things that the people that it hurts the most, the person that hurts the most, I honestly would have to say probably, unfortunately, is Duke Johnson. And here's why. Because if you look at the quarterback style that Kizer has, he's kind of the Cam Newton type, launch it down the field. And be able to run it. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's not always the most accurate. So it'll be interesting to see how Duke Johnson fares. Again, they're using him as their offensive coordinator described as like a chess queen, kind of all over the ability to move anywhere. It'll be interesting to see with him running the slot if he's still going to be as used. He should, in my opinion, should still get his 50 catches, making him, 3 years in a row. I think he'll get 50 catches, 500 yards. In PPR, I think that makes him a running back 3 or 4, depending on how injuries go. That kind of production could possibly put you in the running back 2 range. But I think that it may temper, could kind of temper a little bit of the expectations on Duke Johnson. I still drafted him in my league today. But I got him at a pretty decent value. So why don't we, since we've got just a couple more minutes, Justin, why don't do you have your draft pulled up?
I do. I have my team. I don't necessarily have the draft, but from my recollection, I can go through kind of where things went. Interestingly enough, with the first pick at pick number 6, obviously things went in order. They went David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and then Shady jumped to the number 5 spot, leaving me with the option to pick up Odell Beckham Jr. I did not do that. I went with a much more consistent wide receiver in Jordy Nelson, who his average draft position is the 10 or 11 in a PPR in round 1. I did that because Jordy Nelson has a much more consistent quarterback. He is clearly the number 1 option for that number 1 quarterback.
Well,
go ahead.
Odell is still the definite number 1 for Eli.
Well, yes, but there's a difference between Eli and Aaron Rodgers. The other part is the volatility or the emotional inconsistency of Odell Beckham Jr. and the current leg injury.
Yeah, correct.
He won't play until at least week 1, but there's talk that he might even miss a week. Jordy Nelson's healthy, so that's why I went there. I then went with Isaiah Crowell, Golden Tate, Michael Crabtree were my next couple of picks. Golden Tate, Kareem Hunt, then Crabtree. Really liked Kareem Hunt, was able to get him in the fourth. No one really was shocked that I took him in the fourth. He does kind of have a tough week one against New England, but defense has changed. They could be different this year. But he will be the featured back in a team that's run heavy. My bench I believe is the deepest in the league so far. Devontae Parker is on the bench. Robert Kelly on the bench. Kenny Britt on the bench. Derrick Henry, Jaquiz Rogers, Alvin Kamara, and Evan Ingram. Oddly enough, Evan Ingram through the preseason has been the number 2 target for the Giants in terms of targets per game. So they're trying to get on the ball. They're trying to mix him in. He's going to be more of a split out wide receiver more than an internal blocking tight end. So yeah, that's kind of how the draft went. I did get to touch on the kicker, Steven Hauschka, just because I think they're going to be kicking a lot of field goals.
All right. I wanted to go over my draft a little bit because one of the things that people are going to notice when I go through my draft is what you may see as a contradiction in how Justin and I have declared the way that we draft. So I had the second overall pick in a 12-team league, and so in a 12-team PPR. However, this is not your typical PPR. This is a massive points PPR league. So I mean, you've got big bonus points for 40-yard plays, for 40-yard touchdowns. You've got bonus. You've got it's a point per catch and a point per first down on top of that. Then for quarterbacks, here's where I deviated from my normal draft strategy. Quarterbacks get all those bonus points for the 40-yard passes, 40-yard touchdowns. Plus, they also get a half point per completion. So if you look at just the projected stats for 1 week for all your players, Le'Veon Bell is projected for almost 26 points in week 1. Tom Brady is projected for almost 50 in week 1. So because of that, I had to go with Tom Brady. Last year in this league, I went Stafford. I waited, went Stafford late, and my team just never could recover. So this year, I took Le'Veon Bell with the number 2 overall pick. Coming back around, I took Terrell Pryor as my number 1 wide receiver, and then Tom Brady in the third as my quarterback. And again, part of the thing you need to look at when you're drafting is your league rules. And because of that, I've deviated from my normal strategy in order to take Tom Brady. And I don't think, unless he gets injured, I seriously doubt I'm going to regret that. So I am currently, just with my team, projections can always change, but projected to score a lot of points this year because of certain guys that I took. So, so after the third, again, I took Tom Brady. And so Le'Veon Bell, then Terrell Pryor, then Tom Brady in the third. In the fourth round, I took Greg Olsen, solid tight end. We'll see how he does. We'll see how Cam targets him. Cam likes throwing the ball to him. But even when Cam's not there, Derek Anderson only can seem to throw the ball to Greg Olsen. So I think I'm pretty safe with that pick in the fourth. My fifth round pick was Kareem Hunt. So I have a starting running back tandem of Le'Veon Bell, Kareem Hunt. I think my team is pretty set right there. Coming back around in the 6th and 7th, I took Willie Snead as my wide receiver 2, Tyrell Williams as my wide receiver number 3. And this is a quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, and 2 flexes. So as far as my starting lineup is Tom Brady, Terrell Pryor, Willie Snead, Le'Veon Bell, Kareem Hunt, Greg Olsen, Tyrell Williams, and then my other flex is Duke Johnson. But I have a whole lot of options here to change in and out with Duke Johnson, because here's my bench. Brandon Marshall, who could very well have a very decent season this year. Then James White, a PPR back. Cole Beasley, not a whole lot of upside, but solid PPR production. Cameron Brate, who I think is extremely underrated this year. Chris Thompson, who is, had the last few years in PPR has finished right around that running back 30 or so. So he's going to be very productive in PPR. And then I took 3 flyers. I took Kenny Golladay, who's had an awesome camp. Very well could be a sleeper this year. I took James Conner, who has struggled a little bit in the preseason, but I needed some sort of backup to Le'Veon Bell. I may move him a little bit later, depending. And then Chris Carson, who's had an awesome camp for Seattle, and just with all the question marks in that running back field, he's definitely a guy that I want to hold on to for later. So as far as my defense, I took Pittsburgh because game 1 they play Cleveland, and someone took Baltimore because they face or who else was it that faces Baltimore and Cleveland in the first 2 weeks. So and then this one has an IDP, so I took a middle linebacker and Bobby Wagner to collect a lot of tackles. I did not take a kicker. That's one thing about drafting this week. You do not have to take a kicker if you're drafting the next couple days. Wait on your kicker. Maybe even wait on your defense. Take a couple flyers to see who's making the teams, where people are ending up on the depth charts, and then you can drop a couple flyers at the end to pick up your kicker and defense to stream them all season like I will be. So, all right, that's pretty much all I have. You got anything more, Justin?
That's pretty much the show, other than to remind people to follow us on the SleeperBot app, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and
follow us on Facebook.
Give us a rating or review
on iTunes.
Out there on iTunes, Google Play, all those kinds of things.
And in doing that, you'll get entries. Download our draft guide. Admittedly, our draft guide has not been updated. I'm having some word processor issues. So our draft guide has not been updated with the Ezekiel Elliott, the Jordan Matthews, Sammy Watkins trades, or with the injuries that have happened this past weekend. I will try to do that, but no promises. Again, if you want any more info on those, you can always just go back to our last couple podcasts. So again, for Justin, my name is Ryan. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys later. Hey, Skull King Nation, thank you for listening to the Skull King Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.